This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning. Welcome to the weekly weather for May 20th through May 26th. The weekly weather is back after an absence of a couple of months due to the eclipses. I covered why in the last two. Basically, the world's a little crazy here. I'm having Saturn opposite my sun, so trying to get it back on track so it actually happens on Sunday. That's the next goal. But we're back. We're recording. We're going to talk about the weekly weather, what you can expect, how you can work with it for the week of May 20th to May 26th. So off we go. All right. Lots going on up there in the heavens, as you might have noticed. It's a little wild and crazy. And that's because we have 5 planets, 5 changing signs. That's very unusual. 5 of the outer planets, the personal planets, the sun, the moon, the Mercury, the Venus, the Mars, they change very frequently. It's not that frequent that the outer planets change. So this week we have Jupiter changing into Gemini, where he will spend a year, actually through next June. And I did a presentation on the journey of Jupiter through Gemini, which is available on my website to purchase. And then we are going to have Saturn finishing a sign that he's been in. He's finishing a zodiacal journey. He's in the last degree of Pisces. So last degrees of Pisces. So next year, he goes into Aries, starting a new 29-year cycle, like he did back in 98, 97, 98. And we have, so those two guys are shifting. So that's a real reality change when Saturn goes into Aries, because he says new beginnings, new cycles. And we count Aries because it's the cardinal ingress when the sun goes across the equator. So when Saturn goes across the equator by tropical zodiac, we go, oh, a new 29-year cycle starting. Hi, Saturn. But that means right now a 29-year cycle is ending and coming to a conclusion. So when we are in ending phases, you know what that means. Stuff's over. We're letting it go. We're leaving it behind. The Jupiter transit happens every year. But this year we are in the year of the wood dragon. And all of the other Chinese animals are real animals. The dragon is imaginal. The last time we had this was a water dragon, and it was Hurricane Sandy. And every 12 years we have the dragon, which allows us to look at the world with new imagination, new ideas that we want to work with. So I do encourage you to look at that Jupiter lecture that I did, which is available for purchase. But even if you don't look at it, just think back 12-year increments when Jupiter was in Gemini and see how your life as that Gemini house was activated, how you started thinking about new things and doing new things and writing in a new way. So that's Jupiter and Saturn. Those are kind of, we consider those our relational planets. That's why teachers like this class is studious, this class is a little wild, because every year has the same Jupiter. And every 2.5 years, if you think of siblings and you're 2.5 years older than your siblings, it's a very different experience. So those are kind of mini versions. Then we get into the bigger ones. Uranus is the next guy out, and he is going to shift from Taurus, which is not a sign he particularly cares for, into Gemini next year, where he becomes very tricky. And you know, Gemini is also full of all sorts of ideas and new ways of looking at things. So he's towards the end of his sign too. Then we look at, and that's an 84-year cycle. And the last time he will have been in Gemini was 84 years ago. Then the next one out is Neptune. And Neptune is at the very, 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 very last degree of Pisces all summer long, sitting there very tremulous, thinking, okay, I'm right at the edge of transformation, and I'm going to shift into Aries next year, starting a new 168-year cycle, 65 to 68-year cycle. And that last time he did that was the Civil War here in the United States. So the last time he was in Pisces, we had the California gold rush. Now we have Bitcoin. And if you remember, the California gold rush, not a lot of people made the gold. Levi Strauss did. He made the blue jeans for people when they crawled out of the cold rivers after panning for gold all day, to give them a clean pair of pants. But Aries is also, Neptune in Aries is also direct, and it begins, like Saturn is, a whole new cycle. And next year, Saturn and Neptune dance together, initiating a 29-year cycle as well as a 165-year cycle. So that's a big deal. Again, ending energies. Neptune's at the last degrees of Pisces all summer. Not quite into Aries, just kind of looking at it. Kind of going, hi Aries, but not getting there. That's big. And Neptune spends 14 years in a sign, so he has been in Pisces for the last 14 years, since 210. He's finishing that up. Next up, Pluto. Pluto in Capricorn going into Aquarius. We've already had a little bit of it. Last March through June, he went into Aquarius, and then he went into Aquarius in January. When we get to the fall, September, October, November, he goes back into Capricorn, where he wraps up a 248-year journey in Capricorn. And then he goes into Aquarius for good for true. Last time he was in Aquarius was 1777, which was the American Revolution and the French Revolutions. So we know when Pluto goes into Aquarius, we're going to be thinking differently because Aquarius is an air sign, and he's leaving Earth and going from the rock into the air, going from the structures. And think of what happened with the Pluto return of the United States. We said to Britain, you know, go stuff an egg. And now we are looking at governments, we're looking at corporations, we're looking at structures that exist to govern us, and we're saying, hey, change is needed. So we just had, we're going to see a lot of change in leadership in the world, a lot of change in government structures in the world, and we're going to learn to think in new ways. That's a lot of change. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Pluto's a 250-year cycle. Most governments last 250 years. Rome made 500 years. But it's a big government structure cycle. So we're at a real precipice, which is why the world is very crazy. Because for everybody in the world, these planets are shifting. So the weekly weather's goal is to get you thinking about these things and kind of going, all right, let me understand, you know, how this works and what we're doing and why we're here. But that's also why it's very wobbly out there. And my goal, you know, now that we're back from my Saturn opposite my sun, almost not quite finished with it, but we're working on it, is to kind of give you help in terms of how to work with the energy in the week ahead, how to help your friends and family, and also just to kind of get a bigger picture of it so it's a little less intimidating, all these changes. And then in addition to those 5 planets, which is a lot, the nodes of fate are in Aries, Libra. Now the nodes move backwards and they get to 0 Aries at the beginning of next year, 2025. And when that happens, they reset all of our draconic charts. We all have a chart, a natal chart. We also have a thing called a draconic chart. And a draconic chart is our soul chart. And we'll talk more about that as we go back, go forward towards this shift. But what happens when the planets get to 0 Aries, we activate that node of our soul. And our soul says, now we're going to go do this, right? So that's also the 5 planets that are making us very wobbly, plus this new assignment for the next 19 years coming in January. So again, lots and lots of turbulence. So when you're feeling a little, you know, like this, go, all right, it's a little wobbly out there. Let me go do my moon. Do my moon by sign and house. Find your moon, look at how old it is, the year, the degree is the age, and then say, okay, go look up words for the moon. My moon is 6 degrees, which means it's 6 years old. Pisces, which means swimming, showers, waters, naps, rubbing my feet, because Pisces rules feet. I love to rub cream on my feet. I love to have mani-pedis. Actually, I don't really like manis. I like the pedis. And that's how I handle my Pisces moon. A good cup of tea, you know, just a little warm water makes me very happy, because Pisces is water, of course, and moon is how we comfort ourselves. Listening to music, very affected by music. So do your moon when you're feeling stressed, because that will always calm you down. It gets you back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basic level, the pyramid of the structure. What makes you happy? What makes you feel content and safe? So do your moon if you're feeling a little overwhelmed. And with that note, forward we go into the weekly weather. So we're going to have a new moon webinar on June 5th. It's up on my website for the new moon that will happen on June 6th. I know it's a little ways away, but this thing tells us where we're going. Next up, this is the week we have a lot of activity, especially on the 23rd. A lot of activity, that's tomorrow, and we're having a lot of Venus activity. So this week is kind of supercharged, and we also have Jupiter going into Gemini. We have the Sun go into Gemini. We have Jupiter going into Gemini, and we're going to have Venus going into Gemini. So we've got a lot of changes in terms of the energy of what's happening. So the Sun goes into Gemini on May 20th. Venus goes into Gemini on May 23rd, and Jupiter goes into Gemini on May 25th. What that does is it shifts the energy from Earth, solid, reliable, dependable, to air, choices, options, maybe this, maybe that. It's a very flirty energy, Gemini. It wants to talk to us. It wants to communicate with us. It wants to connect and have a chat. So Gemini is also about dual options and looking at options and opportunities and seeing them. So first up, on Sunday, we had the Sun sextile Neptune. At the very last degrees of Taurus, it sextiled our little Neptune friend over there at 29 Pisces. And the Sun sextile Neptune is taking action on a dream. It's very much a Sun is how I want to see things, how I want to get things done. And Neptune is what my dream is, what my vision is, what am I inspired by, what encourages me, what asks me to expand. And you can see we have this little pile of planets over here in Taurus, and they're all about to shift into Gemini. The Sun, and then Venus, and then Jupiter. So that happens this week, them all shifting. So by the end of the week, you're going to see this whole little clump changed from Earth, Earth, Earth to air, air, air. And that means we're going to do everything twice, maybe 2 times, maybe 4 times, maybe 6 times, because there's 3 planets in Gemini hanging out. Hopefully not 6 times, but watch for doubles. You have to do it over. And you can see the emphasis on Earth and fixity, and then it is going to shift, and we're going to feel like, okay, I'm taking off in search of my dream. Sextile Neptune, let's roll. Next up, on Monday, the Sun entered Gemini, and we had an option, we had an ability to look at things in a new way, opportunity to see things in a new way, and kind of forward motion. And we also had Neptune on the midheaven of the chart, because the Sun has slipped into a new sign, an air sign, all about communication. Now, Mercury is still in Earth, so he's reliable and solid and dependable and all that stuff, which makes that Sun in Gemini still a little grounded. Doesn't necessarily want to go. We can see over here now we have an emphasis in air. We had the Earth, but now we're starting to get more air because the Sun, when it shifts, has a focus. We also have a lot of energy with water planets, meaning planets in water houses, and Neptune very prominently at the top, Cancer at the rising. This is for the emotional nature of the chart. That's the moon's energy in terms of how it's spoken and seen and what it wants emotionally. And we did have some emotional goings on in Congress after people came home on the train and drank a little too much. And we had a big hearing at 11 o'clock at night that went a little off the rails. Next up on Wednesday, we have the Sun trining Pluto. Now, remember, Pluto went into Aquarius in January 20th, and Mercury, Mars, and Venus all met up with him and joined him. But the Sun hasn't yet. They're kind of, his Sun doesn't meet Pluto till next year in his new sign. But he knows he's in the room. He's like, oh, there's Pluto over there. You know, it's kind of like when you walk in a party. And you go, oh, I see them over there. They aren't talking, but they know each other exist. So this is Wednesday, and this is the idea of looking at things and saying, oh, I know that's going on over there. I see you. I understand you're there. What am I going to do about you? And so when we're looking at that Sun trine Pluto energy, it's a lot of understanding, and it also has an ability to look at the layers, because Pluto's always about power dynamics and how they work. Again, we still have a lot of fixed air in the sky. Notice how big the fixed Earth in the sky. Notice how big the Earth bar is and how big the fixed Earth is Taurus. So we know we have a lot of energy around fixity, but we also know that Sun and Pluto are looking at each other and they're thinking. They're discussing things. And as we go forward into the day, into the week, we're going to see this energy come a little bit more alive. Next up, Venus meets up with Jupiter. This is an abundance energy. This is on Thursday. It's a good thing. It's a nice, solid, working energy. Jupiter, of course, is coming into his trine to Neptune that he has this week, as is Venus. The two of them are both going to trine Neptune and activate that energy and say, okay, let's roll. Again, trines are easy and flowing, and they help things move forward. So that's going to be on Thursday, the 23rd, which is a pretty big day. Now, in my world, I'm going to Memphis later today, and today is Wednesday, and I'm moving my aunt here. We're having my cousin come in from California. I'm bringing my cousin here from Florida, and we're going to have a road trip with my aunt. 4 women on the road. My aunt is moving, her husband passed last November, and we're moving her down here to an assisted living place because we looked, you know, California and Connecticut and New York, California, Connecticut, and Florida. Florida is the least expensive. And it also has, you know, a very nice place right near my house. So the road trip, we're going to be leaving on Thursday, the 23rd. But also, this is a good day because of the trine, the Venus meeting Jupiter and connecting. And then as we go further into the day, Venus is going to have a sextile to Neptune. I said that wrong, a trine. She's going to have a sextile to Neptune, which is an activating, forward motion, flowing energy. Let's take the action and get some work done. And let's expand things, new ideas. And then we're going to have a full moon on the 23rd. Interestingly, my aunt is a Sagittarius, and this is her sun. So we're moving her and getting her a new home. And a full moon is an opportunity to look back and think about things. And full moons take us back to last fall, which was my aunt and uncle's 50th wedding anniversary. And then we go back another chunk of time to November of 2023, when there was a new moon in Sag. And so this is the full moon, and then there'll be a closing moon next March when the sun is in Pisces and the moon is in Sag. So this is the larger cycle. So think back to last fall, think back to winter of or November of 2023. And that gives you the story on winter of 2022, September of 2023, now the full moon, and then next year we'll have the closing square. So this is a cycle, a bigger cycle, in addition to the 30-day cycle. And you can see there's a mystic rectangle in the middle of that baby. See it right there? We love mystic rectangles. They're inspirational. This is an air and fire with a little earth and water thrown in. So it's got a good firm direction in helping you move forward in new ways. And that's on the full moon on Thursday, May 23rd. Next up, when we look at this full moon, it has music. Definitely we're going to have music on our road trip with the sun and moon aspecting Terpsichore. We also have Hidalgo with Venus and Jupiter righting wrongs and trying to get things accomplished. And we also are changing my aunt's life, obviously, because her husband passed away last November. We also have some interesting fixed stars that encourage us to back up and look at things and pay attention to the structures that need to take place and change. Next up, we have Venus entering Gemini on Thursday at 4:30. Now, this is an interesting one because when she enters Gemini, suddenly the whole heavens change because she is in charge of the Earth planets. And you can see now the Earth bar dropped and the air bar got big because now we're working with air. And Venus is in charge of the South Node in Libra over here. She also is in charge of all the Taurus planets. This also means that Mercury and Venus are in what we call mutual reception. They can swap jobs, they can swap positions, they can change what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what it's about. So that's a nice working energy, good aspects for a road trip, if I do say so myself. And they also are very much about the direction we're heading in, what's important, and why are we doing this, where are we going. So there's a nice energy here right after that full moon in Sagittarius that says, go, go, have a good time, have an adventure. Venus in Gemini, flirty, fun, creative, and happy. Next up, the Jupiter is sextile to Neptune. This happens once every 12 years. So Jupiter here at 29 Taurus is sextile to Neptune at 29 Pisces, and the two of them are working together, and that's on Thursday also, which has this expansion energy and wants to make things grow. Jupiter is in its exaltation in Taurus. Neptune is in its rulership in Pisces. So the two of them are very happy to work together in a good collaborative way and kind of say, okay, let's go do it. We're still working all this under the auspices of the full moon, but because Jupiter is in his glory, he's running this, one of his favorite signs, he's running this moon in Sag and helping all that step forward and take place in a new direction. And now we're getting a little more passion, a little more direction, a little more inspirational, because these two outer planets, Jupiter, who spends a year in a sign, and Neptune, who's spent the last 14 years in a sign, in the sign of Pisces, are working together, collaborating. Again, helpful energies this week. Next up on Saturday, we have Venus trining Pluto. So Venus went into Gemini, and the first thing up she does, the sun at the beginning of the week trine Pluto. Venus is going to trine Pluto in Aquarius. Remember, she met him in August. She met him back in February, end of January, beginning of February. So they started a journey then. And she said, okay, this is the plan. And so the two of them are working together collaboratively in a cooperative nature, and they are in air signs. So communication is good. As we see here, the air sign bar is big. We also see we've gone from this fixed into much more changeable. Remember, Venus is in charge of the Taurus planets, which normally are very fixed. And now she's in air. So she's like to them, what do you guys want to do? And they're like, what do you mean, what do we want to do? You're asking us? And she's like, yes, what do you want? And so it's a much chirpier heavens, very chirpy, very happy, very, well, it could be this, could be that. How about this? How about that? So kind of pay attention to that energy. Now, we're going to work with that trine because it's a working, flowing idea energy. And it will happen, of course, once a year. Venus will be in a trine to Pluto, but it's a distributing trine. She's bringing things out to get things moving and have us see them in a new way. Next up, Jupiter enters Gemini. This happens on Saturday. And now you can see all those planets at the beginning of the podcast that were in Taurus, they're now in Gemini. Now, Jupiter, not a fan of Gemini because he likes to give orders and everybody does stuff. When it's in Gemini, he's got piles of paper. He's got all these things he has to think about. He's like, really? That's kind of, can't you just do it? Why are you always coming back and asking me about stuff? I gave you an order, go do it. Now, everything's a negotiation. And now you can see the sun, the Venus, the Jupiter, all in Gemini. They all want to chat it up. Now, the good news is that Mercury and Jupiter, in the same way that Venus and Mercury were in mutual reception, Jupiter and Mercury are in mutual reception. So Jupiter can switch to be exalted in Taurus, and Mercury can switch to be in Gemini, again, one of his favorite signs. But you have to apply consciousness to that. And I encourage you to do that and kind of go, okay, let me have a bigger picture here. We also see Mars in this chart. When Jupiter goes into Gemini, we see Mars at 19 Aries. That's the same degree as the eclipse on April 8th. That was at 1942 Aries, and that was the sun, the moon, and Chiron. Now we've had Venus go through there, we had Mercury go through there, now we're having Mars going through there. So the eclipse from April 8th is activated, bringing forward the promise of that eclipse, which is for the next 4 years. It's that point is active. So you want to watch, and it's because the totality was 4 hours and 12 minutes. It's 4 years. So we're just going to kind of pay attention to the eclipse activity being activated and kind of go, oh, okay, we're ready. And then we see all these planets now in Gemini, which gives us a high air feeling, because the moon is in Capricorn. It's a working moon, in terms of getting things accomplished, and that's going to be when Jupiter enters Gemini on Saturday. It will be there until next June, so we have a year. Now, the issue with Jupiter and Gemini is we always have to do things a couple of times. It's a bit of a pain in the butt. Just do it twice, get it over with. Don't even think about it. Don't argue with it. Just go, what do you mean I have to, what paperwork do I need? Everything double. Do not take it personally. It's not personal. Jupiter just wants to make sure that you really have everything you need. And he may go, well, you know, this is expired, or this needs to be redone. So like in the case of my aunt, we have a healthcare proxy from Memphis where they lived until last spring when they moved to, when they have a healthcare proxy from Memphis. We also have one from South Carolina where they lived for the last 14 years. And now we have to get a healthcare proxy for here in Florida. All good, all part of the journey, all part of the process, but a journey which has to be undertaken and done. So the energy is strong, collaborative, and working. But as Jupiter goes into Gemini, suddenly everything takes a little longer, needs a couple more steps. It isn't quite working the way you might want it to. And it doesn't always give you full information. You get the information and they left something out. And you go, did you tell me everything? And they go, yeah. And then you get there and they go, oh, we forgot to mention. Where's this? And you're like, you didn't mention I needed that. Double check everything for the whole year, starting on Saturday. I did a 2-hour podcast on Jupiter and Gemini, available on my website to purchase, which talks about how to work with this energy and also how to look at what house Jupiter is going through in your chart, because you're going to have to do everything in that house twice. And that house is also going to expand. Okay, as mentioned, Jupiter's journey in Gemini, I recorded it last night. It is available for sale on my website. It was a 2-hour class, not a 90-minute, with a question and answer period and discussion about how to manifest. Do sit down when we get to May 25th and do a ritual, what you want to bring in for this next 12 years or the next year. You don't want to do 12. We also have on May 31st, the Sun and Venus are going to meet up, and they're going to have a star point or a Cazimi in Gemini. So feel free to tune in for another podcast then, where we're going to talk about Venus star point, which sets off a new cycle around love, money, and creativity through the eyes of Gemini. And then third, but not least, we have the great Jupiter-Uranus cycle available, because now it's acting. We're going back and we're looking and we're saying, gee, this new 14-year cycle started on April 20th. Now that Jupiter's in a new sign talking about the plans for the year, let's get some idea of what they're going to be and how we're going to work with them. So those are the energies for the week. Now, when we look at the planetary points, we've covered the bulk of them. The sun is going to go, remember in your chart, you have planets at degrees. So the sun is going to go between the degrees of 29 and 6 Gemini. So look at anything from 29 to 6. Those are going to be activated by the sun. We talked about his sextile to Neptune, him entering Gemini. He also has a semi-square to Mars. That happens on May 21st, which is a little bit of a wobbly energy. And then the sun has that lovely trine to Pluto on May 22nd. And he's quiescent the rest of the week. Mercury, very quiet week. He's not doing much of anything, kind of hanging out, watching what's going on. He's an earth sign. He gets called into action later. Mercury is moving between the degrees of 4 and 14.5. He has a little squabble on May 25th with Neptune, trying to get things organized. And he also is forming some partnerships on May 21st with his trine to Juno. Sun is going from 25 Taurus through 2 Gemini. It shifts into Gemini on May 23rd. It has the conjunction to Jupiter. It has the sextile to Neptune. It has the entering Gemini, and then that's all on May 23rd. And then on the 25th, Venus has a trine to Pluto. So Venus is busy this week. And as she shifts, she takes the South Node and the Taurus planets with her and has them transform to big Venus week. Mars this week is running from 14 Aries through 20 Aries, and he's not doing much. He does have a meeting with the nodes of fate on the 19th, which is really more of activating the eclipse degree. And most of the week, he's kind of quiet. He does move on May 26th. Mars squares Vesta. So that's a big move date. And I know about 4 people that are moving beside my aunt. And he also has a little bit of stress on the 25th when he has an argument with Saturn. Nothing major, but anxiety, kind of a little anxiety attack. Then Jupiter, as we mentioned, has the lovely sextile to Neptune once every 12 years, and then enters Gemini again once every 12 years. A little bit of stress on the 24th when he has kind of an anxious energy aspect to the nodes of fate. In my case, we'll be on a road trip with my aunt, so there should probably be a little stress then. And then on the 22nd, then Jupiter is running from 28 Taurus to 0 Gemini. Entering Gemini on May 25th. And then Saturn has a trine to Vesta that happened on May 22nd, which is a lot about going home, and the rest of the planets are quiet. When we look at the new moons for the week, we're heading towards Memorial Day. And so the moon was void from 11:48 a.m. on Sunday afternoon until 6:30 on Monday. So there was a big void moon on Monday when the sun entered Gemini. Monday night at 6:34, the moon entered Scorpio. It's in Scorpio Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday. It goes void on Thursday morning at 3:28 a.m. And then it enters Sagittarius at 4:24 a.m. on the 23rd. The 23rd is a super busy day. We have the full moon. We have Venus entering Gemini at 4:30 p.m. We have a lot of aspects. Venus hitting Jupiter, Venus hitting Neptune, Jupiter and Neptune in their sextile, which happens once every 12 years. This is a big deal day. So Wednesday's rocking and rolling, which is why I made sure gotta record it, even though I'm leaving on a flight in about 20 minutes. So there's a nice moving forward energy. The moon goes void at 3:28 a.m. Moon trines Neptune on Thursday, the 23rd, and then it enters Sagittarius at 4:24 in the morning, and it's in Sag all day Thursday, all day Friday, and it goes void at 10:47 a.m. on the 25th. And enters Capricorn at 11:36 a.m. on the 25th, which is Saturday. The moon goes void with a square to Neptune on the 25th. And then that evening, Jupiter goes into Gemini at 7:15 p.m. And then he's in Gemini for a year. The moon is in Capricorn from 11:36 a.m. on Saturday, all day Sunday, and Monday at 4:02 p.m. It goes into Cap with a sextile, leaves Cap with a sextile to Neptune, and then it enters Aquarius on Memorial Day Monday at 4:45 p.m. and it's in Aquarius the 27th, the 28th, the 29th, going void at 10:20 a.m. on the 29th. So there's a lot of energy of adjustment and change and how we get things organized and structured. The busy days this week are Monday. Monday was a very stressful day, the 20th, lots of back and forth and arguments, plus a big old void moon where nothing came of it. Tuesday and Wednesday, kind of quiet, some trines and flow. Thursday, crazy busy. Saturday, very busy with adjustment energy taking place on Saturday. And Sunday, the 26th, is a good working day, as is Monday, the 27th, Memorial Day. So hopefully that gives you some ideas about how to work with the energy of the week ahead and what to do with it. And that you have a good week. Feel free to check out those podcasts that I'm offering, those webinars I'm offering, and off we go into the future. Jupiter's shifting, a whole new reality, because Jupiter's like, yeah, I'm in the sign of the trickster now. Let's have some fun. And hopefully you have fun and you have a good Memorial Day weekend. And we're back. The podcast is back. I realized I forgot to load it up on Facebook. Thanks to you who pointed it out to me. So, you know, because I kind of fell out of the routine. I had a little routine I did, and I kind of fell out of that. So back in the routine again, and have a lovely, lovely day and a lovely week. And I'll see you on Sunday. Hopefully, that's the plan going forward. Bye.